So, ladies and gentlemen, today on Sports File, we're taking a look at probably one of the strangest seasons in Montreal Canadiens history, where they had one of their worst regular seasons and one of their best overachieving playoff runs of all time. Of course, we're talking about the 1983-84 Montreal Canadiens. Now, Bob Berry had started the season as the team's coach, did a very mediocre job, and it was taken over by the great Jacques Lemaire because Serge Savard thought that the team needed a change. Most of the games that Montreal played that year at the Forum and on the road were extremely inconsistent. They would have a great level of success in the regular season, but unfortunately, in home games, when on the road we have some really rotten results. Now, despite the bad record, they had what I call the big five of the Habs, where Gil Fleur had 30 goals and 70 points. Matt Slasson had 29 goals and 64 points. Bobby Smith, 63 points, 26 goals. Carbonneau had a great overachieving year with 24 goals and 54 assists. And the great Ryan Walter had 20 goals and 49 points. Now, as it stood this year, a lot of the holdovers from the 1970s dynasty were still there, including again Robinson, Gainey, Tremblay, Mondeau, Schutt, and some young players coming in like Mark Hunter, Ricky Natras, Doug Wickenheiser was still around at the time, Keith Acton. So overall, there was a start of a youth movement in Montreal, including a catalyst for again the Good Friday Massacre, Mike McPhee. But as it stood, there was nothing really there that was, a 50 goal score player could take over like a Richer later on. They were having, heavy problems in the regular season. And this led into the decision by Lemaire to go for broke instead of starting one of his top two goalies, Rick Wamsley or Richard 70 in the playoffs. He started to go with a rookie from the Voyageurs called Steve Penny. Now, Steve Penny had a very nondescript regular season with only 4 games with a 4.75 average. But sure enough, when the playoffs started, he fought tooth and nail to take on or to basically take on the challenge of the Boston Bruins. And of course, like every Boston Bruins series against Montreal, there's always a little surprise. And in this series, they won the first 2 games of the Boston Garden by scores of 2-1 and 3-1, and he came back and swept Boston the best of five with a best of five with a 5-0 victory. Now Montreal's big eyes, of course, were on their possible second series opponent because the Quebec Nordiques also did their own sweeping. They defeated the Sabres 3-2 and 6-2 in Buffalo and 4-1 at home. And because of Montreal's low points position in the playoffs, they had to play the Nordiques the second round. Now, we have to remember in 1982 was the first series between the teams, and it went to 5 games with Hunter scoring in overtime. And it was, some people believed that this would be to have the same type of fireworks as the initial series, and sure enough, it did. When Montreal opened the series in Quebec, Montreal had a very tough performance, losing 4-2. But Game 2 was another story where the young players, including Mondeau, really had a great performance, winning 4-1. And when Montreal came back to Quebec, came back home, there was a momentum towards them, which led them to win Game 3 2-1. Now, a lot of people feel the ire of the series started with Game 4 because Montreal should have won that game, but they lost 4-3 in overtime in the Forum of all places. And that either did one or two things. It woke up the Canadian fans as to what they were capable of, because a lot of people were saying after Game 2, if they could secure a victory, they're going to win 4 straight against the Nordiques, and they almost did. Because when back to the Coliseum, Quebec was so burnt out, they lost by a 4-0 score. Now, by the Good Friday game on the 20th, we knew something was going to happen. There was quite a few angry events and spillage from the previous games, and by the second period, at the end of it especially, all hell broke loose. there was a major brawl that's still considered one of the most important, brawls in NHL history. Nearly 16 players on each team were either fighting or dancing, as we call it, during it, including Peter Stastny. Dale Hunter was an instigator. Mike McPhee was involved. Carbonneau, some of the Christine Allen, of course. They wouldn't leave each other go. There was only 3 on ice officials, obviously, for the game. And when the brawl ended, the start of the end of the second period, it re-began at the start of the third period. Now Quebec was leading 1-0 early, and after a slight mistake by Larry Robinson in his own, Quebec was ahead 2-0. But due to the revival of the what I call the last great moments of Steve Shutt's career in Montreal, they scored 5 unanswered goals, ended up 5-3 for Montreal. But this game changed a lot because it basically said if Montreal and Quebec ever play again, maybe it's going to have a field of battle, because literally they're looking at killing each other. And the most significant part was, of course, that the great pound for pound defenseman Sean Hamel got sucker punched by my distant cousin Louis Schlegel while Hamel was being held by Mario Tremblay, and that was another incident where it kind of brought back the 1970s goon hockey to a modern level. Now, if you have a chance, go on YouTube. You can see how the brawl instigated, and they had no respect for each other. Even Malarchuk and Sevigny were going at it in the push and shove, as we say. I don't think the NHL made the right decision, because the lead referee in this match was chastised. He eventually quit because of it, but not enough penalties were handed out for the incidents, because it was a series of recurring fights. I think it was like 7 or 8 third man ins, and nowadays, it would probably lead to millions of dollars in suspensions. That was the last major brawl to tie back with the old time hockey, saying maybe they're just players. But by the time Montreal got into the semifinals against the Islanders, a lot of people weren't even thinking of a Stanley Cup run, but Penny was still holding the fort. I mean, the young players were doing quite well. In the first 2 games in the Forum, my God, they defeated the defending Stanley Cup champions 3-0 and 4-2. They were leading 2-0. And at this time, a lot of people say, oh, there's a good possibility we're going to play the Oilers for the Stanley Cup final. This is going to be the biggest series of all time. But I think the media got on them, and the fans putting too much pressure on them. Game 3, the loss in New York 5-2. 3-1 Game 4 at home, Montreal, another 3-1 loss. And in Game 6, all momentum went away, including that dirty check on by Trottier on Gainey behind the net, which wasn't really called like it should, and kind of destroyed momentum. See, the Montreal's offense basically disappeared in the last 4 games against the Oilers. The Islanders, and that was the main reason they lost. And of course, in the final, the Oilers played quite well and hammered the trophy away from the Islanders, winning the last 3 games, combined score 19-6, including 2 7-2 wins and a 5-2 win at home. Now, the 83-84 Montreal Canadiens, some people might say it was a prep towards the 86 Cup run. There was a slight possibility, with the right factors playing together, Montreal might have beaten the Islanders, especially when there was close moments in a couple of games where Montreal wasn't out of it. But I don't think any team could have beaten the Edmonton Oilers in the finals that year. They were ready with Gretzky, Messier, all the superstars. So it's something to look back to in pride, because for the team to make the quarterfinals, Montreal in 84, after losing terribly in 83 and 82 and 81, and 1980, the disgrace, losing to a much lower ranked team like Minnesota. This gave hope to the red, white, blue faithful that a Montreal team could still overachieve. But you got to understand, they had a 35-40-5 record in the regular season. For Montreal Canadiens seems to be that much under 500. There was a lot going on, like Guy Lafleur's situation. There were injuries. There was rumors of players not getting along. Wickenheiser's a draft pick wasn't really working out. They were trying to get Steve Shutt out the door. So there was a lot going on in front and behind the scenes. So But for Montreal fans, like I said, there is a YouTube of the Good Friday Massacre out there. It's quite interesting how it plays out. It's almost like a ballet the way it goes on, where everybody's trying to get to Dale Hunter, and Peter Stastny, who was more well known to be a scorer, throwing certain sucker punches, and seeing Guy Lafleur in the middle trying to be the peacemaker. And I don't think Lafleur he got one punch, and there was like 7 or 8 people he tried to hold back. So on this pre-April Fool's Day Sunday, we wish you the best. And I never tell jokes for April Fool, but I must tell you this. Um, there's many people coming on my podcast channel. I'm getting a lot of people that are subscribing and giving me a like and promotion. But I still take requests. If there's any requests out there, sports-wise, news-wise, entertainment, please IM me or messenger JJ Carrier on Facebook, govcarrier@hotmail.com. I cover many subjects, many things you want to hear. And again, this one is another suggestion from not only my good friend Bo Sheaves, which seems to be just like when he used to call CKBC back in the day and people would ask for certain songs. Bo was a very knowledgeable guy for hockey, but like Nathan DeLong, my old friend Bobby Freeze up in Dalhousie, the former Dalhousie Ranger players, former Dalhousie Dodger players, former Beldoon Moosehead baseball players. All these different friends and fans and colleagues motivate me to do this podcast, so I'd like to thank you to them. We are nearing 19,000 page views. Tremendous. And I'd like to see, down the road to do more volunteer podcasts for people that would could use my format to promote their group along. So, again, on this great morning, we wish you the best. As we like to say on the For Good Friday Massacre, don't leave your sticks in the ice. Somebody could trip over them. Have a good day. Bye.